Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by the big man Bakar, who is absolutely fuming. He is irate. He might not show it on his face right now, but just when we jumped on this call a few seconds ago, he was screaming. He was berating me. His own decision making, just absolutely. I can't put into words
what nonsense,
how
what
angry
nonsense is
he was at his rank and his red arrow. Bakar, explain to the viewers what's going on here, mate.
Hello, Jack. Hello, and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. It wasn't a great week. I mean, I wouldn't call it a disaster, if I'm being totally honest. I actually outscored the top 10K average, and I got like 1 or 2 points less than the Elite 64 average. So it was fine in the overall scheme of things. But what really frustrated me was the 50-50 decision that I got wrong. I mentioned in the previous video as well that, Gameweek 31 transfers were going to be very, very critical for the rest of the season. A lot of us were looking to buy Salah, and none of us had obvious routes to get him. Some people were selling Son, others were selling Foden, some were buying Darwin, some weren't. And of course, when there's a variety and there's a diversion in paths, of course, you can expect a lot of variance. I was hoping that I ended up on the right side of it. Unfortunately, I didn't. And had I gone with the other decision that I was other route that I was considering, which was a 50-50 decision between route A and route B, I would have been 19 points better off than I am right now. So that's what is really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I think I just didn't get the rub of the green. I was expecting Son to do well. He didn't. On any other day, Foden could have been benched. Turns out that Haaland was benched, KDB was benched, Foden wasn't. And on top of that, he ends up getting a hat trick. So now I've successfully benched Foden for one of his hat tricks and sold him for his other hat trick. So it really doesn't make for great viewing. So I'm obviously very upset with how the game week has gone. But the good thing is that the next game week is just around the corner, and hopefully I can get back to normal.
I mean, let's be honest. You still take this rank at this this point in the season.
Yeah, the rank is fine. I'm content with the rank. I'm obviously very content with the rank. It's just that I didn't expect the decision to be as swingy as it turned out to be. I was expecting like an 8, 9, 10 point difference, but that was brutal. I mean, let's be honest.
I feel like doesn't this week just kind of prove that for all the work and kind of effort and planning and everything, sometimes variance is actually the most important thing. Not often, I will say that across the season. Good planning will be better than variance. But I mean, look, I said that if I could have sold Foden and kept Son, I would have done that. I didn't have enough money, so that's why I had to keep Foden and sell Son. And is it fair that that's an 18-point swing? Personally, as a Foden owner, I'd say yes, but in a much more real sense, absolutely not. So I mean, that is just luck. Yeah. So what can you say? Let's leave last game week though. Let's leave it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on?
Let's leave it.
Let's talk about captaincy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Let's just move on, and because it's a quick turnaround, I think captaincy is actually where we should begin, because captaincy is going to be the biggest talking point of the game week. I actually want to talk quite an extended length.
Let's get into it. I want to hear your thoughts.
So realistically, there are 4 candidates who are sort of standing out in terms of being the best captain options. When you look at Son, Salah, Haaland, and Palmer, I think these are the 4 ones that realistically appeal. I think this is probably the toughest captaincy decision of the season so far, because the differences in the 4 potential candidates are next to negligible. And I think this is a week where you should go with your gut instinct more than in any other week, because this is a week where, it will again come down to luck. And because the difference is so slim, I just don't think there's any right or wrong answer. Now, I'll sort of get into it. I want to talk about these 4 realistic options. I have the projected number of goals predicted by the bookmakers in front of me. So Man City are 2.25, Chelsea are 2.5, Spurs are 2.45, and Liverpool are 2.35.
Wow. Okay.
So basically, all these 4 teams are predicted to score a very similar number of goals according to the bookmakers. Now, if that is the case, then deciding which one of those 4 players is going to score the maximum amount of points is basically, it'll all just come down to luck. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And this is a week where you should back your instinct. I mean, personally, when you ask me, I still feel more comfortable captaining the likes of Salah, Son, Haaland, even to a certain degree, as opposed to Palmer, even though Palmer is the template captain this week. I don't think I'll be captaining Palmer because maybe it's due to price bias, but I just don't really feel the same level of security and assurance that I feel with some of the other premiums. So I will not be captaining Palmer.
Okay.
Realistically, I was on Sun all week, and one of the reasons why I kept Sun last week was because I thought that I would be captaining Sun this week.
Yeah.
But I've now switched to Salah, and
Oh,
again, I mean,
okay.
disclaimers that
Okay.
it could change back again. Disclaimers it could
Yeah.
change back again. But having looked at Man United's defensive injuries and just the way they're defending, I think I could go with a Liverpool asset, and I don't think that Liverpool will score 2 or 3 goals again without Salah being involved. I just think that was a rare occurrence that we saw against Sheffield United last night. So in that case, I'm fully expecting Salah to do well, Liverpool to score 2 or 3 goals, and yeah, he just gives me that safety blanket that I usually feel very comfortable with. The thing with Son is that he's probably second in line for me as of now. I
Hmm.
think if I was to rank the four, I would go Salah, Son, Haaland. I think these three, and then probably Palmer in that order.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's realistically I'm going to be between Salah and Son. I could swap back again, but just these injuries mean that I've sort of moved to Salah. And the thing is that Son is a bit of a differential anyway. So if he does well, I'll
Yeah, that's
benefit
true.
from his points anyway. So in this kind of a week, probably not the best way to think about the game when you and think more rationally. But if I'm getting points from someone as a differential and I'm gaining, I don't really want to put too many eggs in that Son basket, because let's say if Son doesn't do well and if Salah blows up, then I will suffer quite a bit in rank, and I don't really want that to happen. So yeah, I think I'm likely going to go with Salah.
No, I think that is a sensible. I think that's a sensible way of playing it. That's personally what I'm thinking as well. I mean, I don't have Son, but I'm happy that Palmer is looking more like the template captain, because I think I'm going to go with Palmer, and I think that whatever happens there, it is kind of limiting my losses in a week where, as you say, a lot of it is going to be down to luck. This isn't, I don't think, a week where you can expect to gain loads of points over the field. I think that's going to come for us a bit later. 35, maybe even 34, perhaps, but more 35 to 37, I think, is where I can expect to gain a decent number of rank just through wildcard and bench boost. In a week like this, I think sometimes it's just as important to limit your losses as it is to really gain. So I understand what you're saying with perhaps not going for Son. I think I would rank Son as the top personally, but I do think a lot depends
Really?
on if Richarlison starts. So what do you think about that? Do you think Richarlison's going to start? And if he is he going to play down the middle?
This is going to be a big decision for me to make this week. And generally, I'm very, let's say, safe and temperate with my picks, and I don't tend to pick players who are, let's say, doubts for expected minutes. So the very fact that I still own Richarlison and he's is a bit of a minutes risk is just constantly annoying me
Yeah.
with every passing hour, because I don't really want to have a player who is just not secure for starts, and he's a headache every week basically at this point
Mm.
in time. I benched him last week because I didn't think that he would start. At this point in time, I want to save a transfer this week because I think two free transfers next week could allow a lot of flexibility, especially with Liverpool's fixture at home to Palace. Maybe I can get someone like a Diaz and Luis Diaz in for Charlison, or let's say Virgil van Dijk in for Porro, something like that. I
Yeah.
would have a lot of flexibility with two free transfers. So it's just very annoying that I have this guy who's a constant headache every week and I don't really know what to do about him. Having said that, if he is starting, or if even if he's 50-50 to start, I think I'll keep him, because in that case, I can just have two free transfers and get rid of him next week. The only issue of making that transfer this week, which I will be forced to if I think that, let's say, if I feel that Richarlison's minutes are not secure, I'll be forced to prepone that transfer. But the issue will there be that I only have I actually have nothing in the bank, so
Yeah.
I'll only be able to get Sarabia, and I won't be able to buy the midfielder of my choice, which could potentially be someone like an Eze or Luis Diaz. So that's the opportunity cost that I will be paying. And yeah, it's just that those Gameweek 31 transfer decisions, which have just backfired. Had I owned Foden, Sarabia at this point in time, I would have been in a much better position rather than having this headache, especially now that I've decided not to captain Son, or so I'm sort of close to deciding not to captain Son.
Sure.
That's something still at the back of my mind.
I don't know what I would do. I think you just have to, obviously, you wait to hear of any potential news. But I think even half an hour against Forest at home is really good. You're going to play him over the likes of Mateta, who've got City. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I think you got really unlucky
Yeah.
there with the injury.
Yeah, I'm looking at Sarabia if I don't think Richarlison is starting.
Okay.
If I if I was to know that he's going to play 30 minutes, I would sell him for Sarabia.
Yeah.
I don't want a player who's not playing. So
Sure.
it will come down to that. I'll have a look at some of the predicted lineups. I'll speak to some of the Spurs fans I trust. And there was this overwhelming consensus among them last week that he was going to be benched. But I think this week it's a lot closer because the Spurs attack just didn't really function. And Son he didn't really carry any kind of goal threat. He was basically invisible in the entire game. So I think there's a good chance that Son goes to the left because Johnson has nailed down his spot. Johnson is going anywhere. Johnson's going to play
Mm.
on the right. And I think there's a good chance that Richarlison comes and play through the middle. If I was to guess at this point in time, I think that will be the case. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit biased as a
Well, who knows?
Richarlison owner.
Who knows? Yeah, the
Yeah.
logic makes sense. Look at that's Son then. Let's go back to Salah because I want to ask you as someone who, yeah, you've just said right now is your captain. What are your thoughts on his minutes and his early sub last night? What was the reason for that? What do you think? Are you concerned about that? Are you actually happy about that?
I
Because
think
he might be more nailed to play 90 against United.
I think he was going to play 90 against United anyway, given the
Okay.
significance of the fixture. But you often tend to see this kind of thing happen with Salah once a season. Every single season, I sort of seem to recall me having the same conversation when Salah's been taken off early and doesn't really seem to affect him. I'm pretty sure he's going to start the United game. So
Yeah.
I don't think anything changes if I'm being totally honest. What's done is done, and I think on the counter against United, he could have a field there.
Okay. Let's move on to Palmer. I don't know. I feel like we are still as a community underrating his consistency. Now I agree with you. It's hard to trust him as much as the other premiums that have been doing it for longer in the league. Absolutely. I mean, in terms of Salah and Son, they've been doing it for so many years. Haaland, we had that consistency last year as well, so we know what he can do, obviously. But out of all of them, Palmer has been the most consistent over the last, 10 to 15 game weeks. He has the most points out of all of them. He has the most double-digit hauls out of all of them. Is he not actually in reality, is he not the most consistent player?
I think he's an excellent player, and he tends to do really well against the promoted sides. If you're sort of trying to create a narrative to
Yeah.
to um, go for him as the captain, that's fine. It's just that it's important to remember that Chelsea have had 6 or 7 penalties this season, which
Yeah.
is an abnormally high amount for any side. And when you look at the non-pen XGI data, I think Salah and Haaland are superior to him. As good as he is as a budget enabler, whether he is still the standout captaincy option this week, I am not sure. He's been a fantastic option, and he's basically turned my season around. I mean, I remember getting him in game week 10 on game week 10 wildcard when practically no one had him. He was a huge differential for me from that point onward. So no one is a big Cole Palmer fan of me than myself. I've usually benefited from his points this season. But again, I sort of realized that most of them have come through penalties, and even though his underlying data non-penalty is decent, it's still not quite at the level of someone like a Salah or Haaland.
Yeah.
That's just my point of view.
That's true. And obviously, even in the game last night, I was just looking at the numbers, and yeah, he gets 20 points, but his actual expected goal involvement, non-penalty, is very close to around 1, actually less than 1. So if you take those penalties away, which you can't do that because obviously they happened, but it is quite challenging to predict penalties. I don't think anyone would ever say that you can predict getting a penalty, despite the fact we've had a lot this season, Chelsea. I mean, like the Cucurella one, I don't think personally that was a penalty. I don't think if that's not given, it's definitely not overturned. So yeah, it is obviously a lot down to luck and just individual moments in games. But I don't know. I think I'm personally going to go there. But the more I speak to you in this video, the more I am tempted by Salah just for the consistency overall and the underlying numbers. I also think, I mean, what's happened in the past in terms of him being subbed early, then that next game back? Do you know anything about that? Has there been a reaction from him? Is he often upset and plays well?
I haven't looked into it, but I remember us having this discussion every time and again, every season it happens like once. And it's never sort of continued in the very next week or in the weeks thereafter. It's just been a one-off occurrence every season. So given the fact that it has been a one-off occurrence, I assume that Salah's done well in the weeks to come, which is why the conversation has basically died.
Yeah.
So I just think he's going to do well. And I just fancy that Liverpool attack against United.
Okay. And let's round things off with Haaland. What's going on there? First of all, why was he not playing? What do you think? Why was there? Was it just a good opportunity for a solid rest? Haaland's dad captained him. Now I don't know if that means too much, but it probably suggests that it wasn't an injury. Would be my logic from that. What do you think? Do you think he'll come back into the team against Palace?
I think so. I think he's going to start, and we're gonna have team leaks anyway because it's an
Good point. Yeah.
early deadline. So we're gonna have team leaks anyway. I'm like 99.9% sure that he's going to start. And again, I would expect City to score twice or thrice, and it's very difficult not to see him being involved. So if anyone wants to captain Holland, he's as good an option is Salah, Son, Palmer. I don't think there's anything wrong with captaining Haaland. I don't have any concerns with Haaland personally.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, fun week. There's loads you can do.
Jack, I think we should touch on the double game week fixture announcement. So it's been
Yeah.
announced that
Good point.
Chelsea and Spurs will be doubling in 35 as opposed to 36, which was originally predicted by most fixture gurus, but that hasn't turned out to be the case, and we're in fact going to have a double game week in 35. So someone like myself, I think I was planning on wildcarding in 35 anyway. I guess I can just take advantage of the fixture straight away of the double game week fixtures. Uh, Having said that, I would have preferred the double to have landed in 36 because the fixtures would have been much nicer. Now, the fixtures don't exactly make for good reading.
Mm.
I mean, they're tough fixtures on paper. When you look at Spurs, they're playing Arsenal and Chelsea. And for Chelsea, it's Villa away and Spurs. So, not exactly ideal. But I'm still going to maximize my quota with 6 players from each.
Yeah.
Simply because the number of fixtures those guys have coming up. So, not much has changed. I still think I'll be wildcarding in this in Gameweek 35, as was the plan earlier. For a lot of, let's say, for a lot of people who have used the wildcard, I don't think a lot will change, especially for those who have the free hit in hand. They'll likely just load up on Spurs in 35 as opposed to 36.
Yeah.
So it's just that the fixtures aren't as good as we thought they would be, but I still think that because of the quantity of fixtures and the number of fixtures, we just simply have to attack them.
I think the tough thing is just, and we'll get to that obviously in the coming weeks, is who to go for, because it's not obvious for either Chelsea or Tottenham. I mean, there are two obvious players, but after that, it is actually quite challenging, and I think that will probably reveal itself down the line. I will say as well that, yeah, the fixtures are worse, but you do get more of an advantage because they're coming earlier over people that aren't wildcarding. You know, if people are playing through and free hitting 34 or just building towards 34, realistically, they're only going to have one free transfer for 35, and you're not going to have Chelsea and Tottenham players in your 34 team, or in a, you know, you're probably not going to build towards loads and loads of Chelsea and Tottenham players. You're not going to have 6 by 35 unless you're on wildcard, is my sort of thought process. So yeah, the fixtures are worse, but you'll have more Tottenham and Chelsea players, I reckon. What do you think?
I think I agree with your assessment. You've hit the nail bang on with your assessment. You've actually been doing really well in recent times. I've seen. I mean, I forgot to actually congratulate you on your phenomenal week. I mean,
Well,
guys,
it's
Jack
lucky,
has had
my friend.
85
Come on,
points.
it's a lot of luck.
It's 85 points, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of luck.
Come on, you need to own up that you've done really well this season. For large parts of the season, you've been beating me, and you've sort of overtaken me. I think it's a 7-8 point difference again.
It's very close, and I will say that it's one of those weeks. I said this on the video yesterday. It's one of those weeks that you get kind of once every season, every other season, really. I mean, both my auto subs did really well. I didn't have Garnacho, but 6 and 7 off the bench for Haaland and Saka is very lucky. Foden scores the goal to make it 3-1, which means that Haaland sits down, doesn't come on, then scores another to make it 4-1, means he's definitely not coming on. So I get the Foden points, and then I get my good auto sub for Haaland, good auto sub for Saka as well. I mean, it's very, very fortunate.
I wasn't watching the game. Was Haaland planning to come on?
Yeah, I wasn't watching either, but apparently Haaland and De Bruyne were getting warming about up. The 60th minute mark, and then Foden scored those 2 goals, and they didn't come on. So it's like double reward for the goals.
Exactly. I got as a Barney 7-pointer, so I can't be too cross with Foden for scoring that 3rd goal. In that case,
right. Let's round things off with your AI recommended transfers, my friend. The recommended option by the hub is to bank, which I think you are going to be doing. I'm not even asked you about your transfers. Is that what you're going to be doing?
It depends on Richarlison. Richarlison, I think, is going to start. Then I'm going to bank, even if it's 50-50. I'll bank, and let's say if I think the Richarlison won't start, then I'll sell him for Sarabia. Yeah.
The alternative here is actually to sell Porro. But I think, to be fair, with Richarlison, we're not sure about his minutes. That would make more sense. But I want to talk about the player that, just briefly, the player that the hub is recommending to bring in, which is Ryan Aït-Nouri. He's been doing so well recently. Is he in your thoughts for 34?
Right? He's been playing in the front three, right? So he comes with a degree of upside. But for me, for defenders, I mean, clean sheets are always going to be bread and butter for every defender. And I still don't trust the Wolves' defense as much.
Okay.
As of now, I still think that with double Arsenal defense and with Porro this week, I don't really have to go out of my way to buy another defender. My defense is fairly well set up.
Okay, fair enough. Guys, as always, if you'd like your own AI recommended transfers, sign up to Fantasy Football Hub down below. It's not too late. This is actually the crunch time of the season. This is where you make the real gains. So I think this is actually the best time. You could argue it's better than the start of the season. This is where you make these important rank rises. Thank you, Bakar, as always. Good advice.
Yes, mate.
You've
Thanks
actually,
for having
to
me.
be honest, you've made it harder for me in terms of my captaincy decision making. I was quite set on Palmer, but the underlying numbers of Salah are
Go with your gut. Go with your gut,
I
man. Go with your
know.
gut. This is a week where, data, odds, all these kind of things go out of the window because it's very close. Even when you look at different models who are predicting points, I mean, these guys are very, very similar.
Yeah,
So just go with your gut. No need to, uh, no need to sort of get influenced by my selection or by anyone's selection
that's
in
very
that.
fair.
And
Guys, let us know what you're doing down in the comments below. Very interested to see the general sort of vibe on captaincy. I think, yeah, Palmer is going to be the template, but I'm not sure if that is necessarily a good thing or a bad thing if you're going with him or against him. Bakar, thank you as always, my friend. Interested to
cheers, man.
see who you
Thank
do
you.
end up captaining. We'll see that in your final team reveal, and good luck to all of you guys as well.